Welcome back, everyone. My name is Lucas, and I like to review my favorite shows and movies here on YouTube. I first heard about this show about 6 months ago on Instagram through some of the cast promotional posts. I had just finished the most recent episode of Survivor when I caught an ad for it, and I got so excited when I saw that it was finally out. I dove headfirst into the pilot, and I've been absolutely starving for more since then. So now I'm pumped to be back to review episodes 2 through 4, so expect a couple more videos dropping soon. The episode opens up right where we left off in the middle of the plane going down. If you watched my last breakdown video, you know that one of the last things I said was that I hope to get more of the plane crash, and so seconds in I'm already pleased with where this episode is headed. We bear witness to this visceral scene of these teenage girls screaming, crying, and praying for their lives as the plane rapidly declines towards the ground. The airplane has now become a guided missile, and it's just seconds away from impact. The pilots are trying their hardest to engage in any fail-safes, but every single alternative they have is ineffective. The crash is inevitable. People are going to die. As the girls brace for death, we're given a scene 4 years prior. Some girls are bullying Misty over the phone, and at this point I'm like, okay, if Misty kills one of you for food after the crash, I really don't blame her. They're doing a really good job of selling this 90s aesthetic with the hairstyle and the sets, and I really buy Misty's story, you know? As that scene ends, we see the plane has crashed down. One girl has been stabbed through her chest with a piece of metal and is already dead. Another person burns to death at the back of the plane right next to Van, who's stuck in her seat. Misty and some of the other girls are pushing the door open with all their might, finally managing to break free. Shauna rushes to help Van, but Jackie, fearing they would both die trying to save her, ushers Shauna out of the plane. Did they just leave Van to die? This is a devastating, heart-racing scene, especially seeing Taissa go from person to person looking for Van. As Shauna is thrust outside the plane, she can do nothing but gaze around in horror at her surroundings. Everyone is scrambling for their lives. Some of the girls immediately spring into action, helping others out, while some look on in horror. Others are injured and need tending to. Suddenly, there's an explosion out the back of the plane. I'm pretty sure this is the end for Van, already losing one of our core team. This sucks. We hear Coach Scott yelling in the distance as Misty finds her way to him. She and the other girls discover him with his leg pinned beneath one of the plane's wings. As a group, they work together to lift it, and we see that his leg has been pretty much liquefied by the weight of the wing. It's a gruesome scene, and as someone who's rarely gotten by prosthetics, this one is living rent-free inside my brain. I mean, the way his legs stretched as they pulled him away gave me chills. Some of the girls even throw up at the sight. Misty stumbles off looking for something to help. As she comes back around, Van comes back into view. Thank God she's not dead, and she's rightfully angry at Jackie. Misty amputates Coach Scott's leg. I mean, she didn't even think twice. She just marched right over there carrying an axe and chopped it off. The other girls are stunned. Misty then rips her belt off and ties it around the amputated leg as a tourniquet, and she makes the other girls help her move him. We get a throwback to the Veronicas, and this song is just a chef's kiss for this series. I have to wonder if it's a track that inspired the series' conception. It fits so well. Flash forward to present-day Misty, and we see her on a date attempting to discuss some of her most intimate desires with this very awkward man. Back to the plane crash, we see Misty still being MVP of the episode, instructing the girls to rip up clothes and other materials for bandages. Her intention is to save Coach Scott. She helps Akila tie a bandage around Travis's arm. If you don't remember from the first episode, Travis is one of the head coach's sons, along with his little brother Javi. Misty is looking around for some alcohol or something to disinfect Coach Scott's leg. She asks about the bar cart, to which Lottie replies that there was no alcohol as soda was cheaper. It's clear that even though her dad paid for the plane, he really spared some expenses, including fuel as it seems. Unless... Nah, we'll save that for another video. Natalie admits to having contraband per Laura Lee's accusation. Van digs through Jackie's bag and takes out some witch hazel / isopropyl alcohol, and Jackie almost selfishly protests against it, but backs down after Van shoots daggers at her. Is this Van's villain origin story? Is there some ultimate payback waiting for Jackie for having left Van to die in the back of that plane? If so, a lot of what I said in the last video has been a little bit filled in already. Coach Scott asks about his leg as the searing pain sets in when alcohol is poured on it. He asks how bad it is, and Taissa pretty much lies to keep him comfortable as Misty debates telling him he lost his leg. Let me just say this. For some of the ups and downs I feel the show already has, the scenes of this plane crash are what I'm living for right now. The intensity is dialed up to a 10 and it's only just begun. But there is something glaring about the way this show is edited. And even though I'm a fan, I feel this is my one really valid criticism with the series so far. They cut these intense moments off at the knee by following up with mundane scenes of Shauna's present life, and the intensity immediately dissipates. Shauna's character is, of course, complex and multifaceted, so we can't help but be drawn in, but I also can't help but find some of these moments boring in comparison to the scenes of the plane crash, and it's obvious that that's intentional from an editing standpoint. Just as we find the breakdown of her marriage and her inability to connect with her teenage daughter to not stack up to the time of the plane crash and those days of survival, she feels the exact same way, and we'll get into why later in the episode. Shauna meets a character named Alex after rear-ending him, and he refers her to a mechanic for bodywork. There's some obvious flirtation going on here as they trade numbers, and I'm pretty sure it's deliberate the way he stopped and caused her to crash into him. The scene leads directly into a therapy session in which we see Jeff and Shauna having dried up in the sex department. The therapist assigns them the homework of reigniting the intimacy in their marriage and sharing their fantasies with one another. We see present Misty convincing her date to come inside and meet her bird Caligula. Shout out to those that know the Caligula reference. When he awkwardly attempts to decline, she pretty much guilts him by accusing him of finding her ugly, a callback to the scene in 1992 where the girls were on the phone calling her ugly. When he ultimately agrees to follow her inside, we're greeted by Natalie, who delivers this iconic line.
Hello, Misty. You crazy fucking bitch.
Okay, immediately, awkward Joe takes off, and we see present Misty and present Natalie face to face. Natalie throws a postcard at Misty, and we see that someone has been sending these postcards to the survivors, and they're marked with this strange sigil. Juliette Lewis handles this gun like a boss, and I just gotta say, this is why she's absolutely perfect for this role. Even more perfect when stacked up next to Christina Ricci, whose ability to pull off this crazed but still bubbly iteration of Misty is the funniest thing to me. These two are like the odd couple of the psychological thriller genre now. I mean, I would watch an entire show just centered around them. Can we get a spin-off in the future, maybe? Misty doesn't know who sent the postcards, but she does have a whole briefcase full of information she's been collecting on the other survivors. The two then head to a bar, and Natalie wastes no time getting a buzz going. They go over some of the things Misty has collected and find out she too has been contacted by Jessica Roberts. Natalie wants to know how Jessica could even know about that symbol. Misty suggests that maybe somebody talked. We also find that Travis, the eldest of Coach Martinez's two sons, is still alive, but he's been in hiding. We see a grown-up Kevin Tan, who was, I guess, Natalie's goth friend, at the bar. He gives Natalie his card, but she seems almost sad and insecure with him being there. Just think, she ghosted him after the crash when he was her best friend. Part of me wonders if she always felt too dirty or tainted after the crash and all they did to survive. A common trait amongst survivors of life-altering trauma at a young age is this feeling of being damaged goods, lesser than, unworthy of love and companionship. Natalie may have already felt some of that before the crash, but it's especially apparent by the way she shies away from Kevin. Instead, she chooses to try to leave and contact Travis. Misty keeps Kevin's card for safekeeping. She's so weird. I love it. It's clear to me that Natalie has a deeper connection with Travis than we've seen so far, and it becomes even clearer over a flashback scene to the wilderness where Natalie confronts Travis about his brother, ending in cold rejection. Travis has already been shown to be, at the very least, disgruntled. Compound that with the fact that his dad is now dead, you get a kid who has every right to have an attitude. No one's gonna get him in trouble anyway. I mean, sure, he could have gone about it in a nicer way, maybe been nicer to Natalie and actually stepped up and helped his brother, but all I'm saying is I really don't blame him in this situation. Everyone was dealing with things the way they had to deal with it, and that's just it. We return back to the present to see Taissa and her home life. Taissa, much like everybody else, is a different person at home. She's able to really let her hair down and express the things that are on her chest, without worry. It's a safe space for her. The way Sammy turns his head when she tells her partner that she's always there really concerns me. And we'll end up getting into why a couple episodes from now. We flick back to Shauna and Jeff's intimacy issues again, and that's about it for that scene. Of course, there's further context clues to illustrate and illuminate the breakdown of their marriage, but it's just not something I want to get into. It's like the least thing that interests me about this series. The scene is also 5 minutes long, and I feel like that takes up a lot of real estate when other scenes could have more precedence. I obviously would never knock anyone for preferring the more slice of life elements that the present has to offer us. I'm a sucker for the plane crash, if you didn't know by now. We swing back to some obvious tension between Jackie and Van. Shauna tries her best to be reassuring, but something tells me Van's the type of person to really hold a grudge, and that could develop into something later on. Shauna grabs a bottle of Midol from her bag and leaves Jackie to contemplate her actions. Lottie and Laura Lee manage to find their bags as well, but discover a more gruesome sight. R.I.P. Coach Martinez. You were a real one, I think. Maybe? Anyway, Jackie suggests maybe trying to throw things at him to get him down. The girls aren't having it, obviously, and I'm realizing that everything Coach Martinez said about Jackie was wrong. She only had influence because of her popularity and her standing at school. Here, she's a fish out of water, and nobody has time for it. It's interesting to watch, to say the least. Travis climbs up, and man, this guy can really act. Unfortunately, the limb falls, and Coach Martinez is even more deaded. R.I.P. again, Coach Martinez. As the camera zooms out, we see the symbol carved into a tree, and it looks fresh. We flash back to present-day Taissa, who's received a postcard that is more than ominous. It has the symbol on it, and it leaves me wondering what the hell happened out in those woods. Were they being watched the entire time? The postcard seems like any other postcard with a mountain scene and the words "wish you were here," but in this case, it's so much scarier thinking about what they went through out there and that anything might actually want them back. Taissa goes to read to her son Sammy, and in the middle has a flashback to some wolves, which completely throws her off guard. She suggests maybe they go to the park, but when she peels back the curtains, she sees all these drawings plastered all over the window, and the drawings themselves are incredibly creepy. When asked why he covered the window with all the drawings, Sammy says that he did it to keep the lady in the tree from watching him. Shauna talks on the phone with Alex, and it turns out he's the mechanic that he referred her to. And that's not creepy at all, right? You can see Shauna still has her guard up a little bit, but things will probably change if I had to guess. Then, in typical Shauna fashion, she kills and skins a rabbit from her garden and presumably chops it up for dinner. Flashback to Natalie and Travis walking through the woods after finding Travis's dad dead. Natalie has alcohol, which obviously is some of the hidden contraband maybe she managed to find. The scene is intercut with present-day Natalie, and we see that she's still trying to contact Travis. It doesn't end up working, however. Also, Shauna's family are definitely eating rabbit chili. When she explains how she did it, neither of her family members believe her, which goes to show that they really don't know the extent of what they had to do to survive out there. And even though it was such a huge part of Shauna's life, clearly they never stopped to think about the how or the why or the reason Shauna was able to survive out there. But you know who does understand? The rest of those girls. Anybody that survived with them and made it out alive, they all know exactly what it took. And it's something they share amongst themselves, something they just can't talk about in regular life. The girls are setting up camp for the night and sadly lay a Yellowjackets banner over some of the fallen. Just like the fire they sit beside, you can see the sparks and embers of shifting social dynamics in view. As the night draws to a close, we get a scene between the Yellowjackets being vulnerable and sharing parts of themselves they might not normally share. Also, Jeff is cheating, but I really don't want to get into that right now. And as if the day wasn't crazy enough, Misty had been making the axe red hot on the fire and takes it over to Coach Ben to cauterize his leg. She even tells Coach Scott that she cut his leg off. And it's here that you can see this almost Munchausen by proxy or savior complex that Misty starts to have. And then she says something that really stuck in my brain. She says, "I saved you, but you're not out of the woods yet. Misty goes to pee and she overhears some of the other girls praising her efforts. It wasn't the first time someone said that this episode, and it's kind of true. This was Misty's episode. She was definitely the MVP. However, things are getting really screwed up because I'm pretty sure that Misty is the reason they were out there so long, being that the end scene pretty much shows that she destroyed the black box from the plane. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure she sabotaged Natalie's car, and that's the reason that Natalie is going to have to rely on her for a ride. But we'll get into that in future episodes as well. For those of you that stuck around for another 20-minute video, thanks for watching, and please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. As always, good morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are.